how can you make more money without working more? This is not like a top of the funnel webinar where I'm going to try to tell you that making money doesn't take work, or trying to, give you what you want by taking away what you don't want. There's actually a practical advice here. And the practical advice is about how can you think differently? See, making more money does not require more work. It requires working differently. And working differently starts with thinking differently. And I want to share a story, an example, and then we'll jump into this with Preston and your thoughts on this. But I have a friend who is a professional videographer in the Huntington Beach area. He was doing weddings. He was doing commercials for small businesses. And all of those have a couple things in common. One is you are underpaid for the amount of work that you are doing. And two, people just keep wanting it edited and changed and fixed and all these kind of things. And he just said that by the end of it, it felt like he was not gaining the amount of money that he wanted to gain from that work. And he was working way too hard. Then on happenstance, he got a job from a realtor that he knew that was selling a high-end home. He was selling a high-end home, and what they wanted was a high-end home tour. This was a multi-million-dollar home, a very, very nice home. And he goes and he does the video tour for that home. He says it was an easy day work. He knew exactly what the realtor wanted, because it wasn't about that person personally. It was about showcasing the home to people who could potentially want to buy it. So it was one day of work, and it was significantly higher than any of the other work that he was doing. And then he went, okay, this is what I do now. I don't do those other things. This is what I do now. And then he spent his time connecting with and networking with high-end realtors so he could be the go-to guy in the greater Huntington Beach area on creating luxury home tours. And then his whole business was built around it. He was working less hours, making more money, and having more freedom to go and spend time with his family. So that is what I mean about how you can make more money by working less. So what are your thoughts on that, Preston?
It's 100% true, man. I have so many thoughts. James Wedmore, he says, the less you do, the more you'll make. And it's not about the less work you're doing. It's the less things that you try to specialize in, the less offers that you try to do. My brother is really, really proficient at running the back end of different stores that sell physical products and stuff like that. And he came in and to this one company that he was a consultant for, and they were running an Amazon store, and they had over 100 different products. And he was like, the spreadsheets were out of this world about like all the different inventory and all the different like shipping and supply chain and everything like that. And he took a look at it and he said, okay, you're selling over 100 products, but like 90% of your sales are coming from just like 12 products. And so let's just get rid of all of those things. And they had never even considered it. Like, that's the thing, is talking about thinking differently. They had never even considered eliminating 90% of their products.
Yeah. And that's so interesting, because thoughts, like when it really comes down to it, like here's the punchline for this whole episode, this whole video. The punchline is the way that you make more money by working less is thinking differently. And that's it. That's the way you do it. And the question is, what are the things that you could do where you are putting forth the same amount of effort and making more money? Like, it's such an interesting thing. I remember, well, first of all, over this past weekend, I think Julie May is still here on this call, but maybe she is, maybe she isn't. She said hi, but maybe if you're still here, Julie, say hi. But I was at her event this past weekend, and she had one of the speakers there who was co-promoting the event, Angela Bell, and she talked about that concept of the perfect sale. And how she was talking about one of her clients that, like you were talking about, had all these different offers and all these different places, but there was one particular one that she made the most profit on. Didn't mean she made the most money on, but they made the most profit on this one particular sale. And they then honed in and focused on that, and they doubled the business in 6 months, just because they focused on thinking differently. And I think at some point we were told something like, oh, you have to have this or you have to have that. We have these beliefs inside of us that make us believe that this is the way it needs to be done. And so therefore we don't even consider doing something a different way. We don't even consider doing something a different way because it's how it's always been done. What are your thoughts on that? Preston Pugmire.
Scott Harris is somebody that you and I are both a big fan of. He's one of Tony Robbins' go-to right-hand mans. He teaches and trains and coaches on Tony Robbins stages. He said something just kind of in passing, honestly. It wasn't like I'm making a point kind of energy when he said it, but I think about it all the time. He said, if you believe that the earth is flat, you're not going to try to build a better ship. What that means is if you have a belief about how something is, then you're not even going to ask yourself questions about how would I do this or how would I do this or how would I, if you think the earth is flat, there's no reason to build a better ship because you're just going to sail off the end of the earth. And so once people started believing that the earth is round, just back in the day, then what happened was people started actually saying, okay, well, then how would I circumnavigate the earth? Well, how would I circumnavigate the earth is not a question you even ask. If you believe it's flat, then from that question, say, oh, I would need a ship. What kind of ship? Well, how would I need to do that? And then it became testing and doing things, and different ships sank and then different ships worked. And then they honed it and made it better and better and better. But when you ask yourself, if you have a belief and you don't think to question that belief, then you're not going to get a different way of thinking. So I always ask myself, how? Okay. So when Jake says to me, the way to make more money is to think differently. Okay. How do I think differently? I can't think differently from the thoughts that I currently have. And most of my beliefs that I have, I don't view them as beliefs. I view them as observations of facts. Yes. And so the way to think differently is just ask yourself a different question. For example,
so you ask yourself a different question, and then you get a different result.
Yeah. A different answer that's going to lead you to a different action is going to lead you to a different result. Yeah.